We opened. That was, I'd say, the first start for any business is getting open, get off the ground, getting employees that you can trust with you know, really your livelihood, with everything that you've put into it. I think for us, the key to being successful is probably trying to just stay true to the original values that we had when we first opened the business. You know, for us, we were very community oriented. We were very focused on highlighting St. Petersburg, and we thought that if we could tell the cool story that St. Petersburg had, at least, again, this is very personal for us, if we could tell the story that St. Petersburg had, potentially in a way that, you know, even locals that may know the story, and especially those outside of the area that don't know the story of St. Petersburg, as long as we could represent it with integrity and with sort of love, because really that's how the business started. It was this love of this area and wanting to highlight this area, not just for the local community, but for those abroad beyond St. Petersburg. Knowing that we had a product that could reach that far, we wanted to make sure that we could tell this story, again, with integrity and with honesty and with love. And we believed that, you know, we had already fallen in love with this city. We're from here. And so we believed that other people would fall in love with it as well, as long as we could show it, you know, in the same light and the same way that you know, we fell in love with it. You know, the business side of things, hiring, tasting room, management, I mean, all of that is still, you know, you still have to learn that. But when it comes to actually producing on a big scale, I mean, I would highly recommend that people do some kind of training, internshipping at breweries, working at breweries beforehand, at least learning the basic process of, for example, how do you clean a tank that's 30 feet tall? You know, how do you prepare it for wort, which is just pre-beer? There's very, very simple steps like that. You know, how do you lauter on a system like that? How do you transfer? How do you centrifuge? How do you keg? How do you carbonate? How do you, without actually seeing those applications in process, it'd be difficult to just figure that out on your own. I'm not saying you can't do it, but yeah, I would say some training or internship would be good. That is a very good question. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to go through a bunch of trial and error. Sometimes the ingredients themselves change, depending on if it's, for example, a harvested ingredient like fruit or you know, even grain and hops. You know, they change every time you use them. So even on our base ingredients, we have to adjust our recipes based on the data that we get back from harvest. So especially if you're adding something that's not necessarily traditional to that brand or that beer, you oftentimes you can make teas, you can make, you know, do little small experiments on a smaller scale in order to get them. Generally speaking, we sort of jump in at this point because we've done so many different, you know, types of beers and added so many different types of ingredients that we tend to have a general idea of kind of what flavor profiles you want. One good rule of thumb is you can always add more, you can't add less. So sometimes it's good to start on the low end, taste it, and then go up from there, depending on how you're adding it in process. Because the wrinkle that is really thrown in there is, how do you get the characteristic of that ingredient that you're looking for to translate best in the final product? First of all, on the brewmaster side, I'm being a brewer. I've run into brewers from all different walks of life. So I wouldn't say that there might be one necessarily that would make you a great brewer, other than your strive for quality and your strive to create the best product that you can. As long as you desire that, I think you could figure it out. But I've met brewers who were phenomenal brewers that were, you know, had a creative background, you know, that didn't necessarily have maybe a science background or anything like that. They were just like analytical and, you know, sort of creativity. I've met some who didn't have that at all, but had a ton of like chemistry background. I've had some that had tons of microbiology background. I've met some that have tons of engineering background, and it doesn't necessarily mean that any of them are worse or better at brewing, as much as long as you're sort of using whatever tools you have to continue to try and produce the best product that you can and continue to get better at what you're doing. I think that's really the best quality you can have. It's just is this need to be better and to create something better every time. I actually worked at a local hospital for like 8 years, and I wanted to go to med school. And right when I finished my prereqs, and I still had like another year to go just to finish, some electives to get the amount of credits to graduate. I was like, I don't want to go to med school anymore. Just out of nowhere, I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it anymore. I'd worked in a hospital for years and just didn't feel like it. So what I didn't know what I wanted to do, but what I did know was I enjoyed reading and I enjoyed writing, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I went back to school and became a literature major. And so I wanted to read and write. I wanted to write essays. I wanted to read a bunch of novels that I had never experienced and literature that I had never, sat down and taken the time to study. And so, so my background's definitely, I have a science background, if you will. I have a lot of chemistry and micro and sort of the pre-med side of things. But I would say that my biggest strength is probably more analytical. I have more of an analytical mind probably, and sort of a creative side. So so my background ironically is English literature, which doesn't have much to do with this, but the rewards I believe are so outweigh any of sort of the difficulties that might come along. I've had a few failed attempts in opening breweries before Green Bench opened, and so failure is a part of life. I mean, it's part of everything. I was going to say just business, but it's broader than that. Failure is a part of it all. I guess try your best to not get discouraged by failure. Try your best to take failures as learning experiences. They're going to happen. They're going to sting. But ultimately, I think they're going to be really important because they're going to allow you to not make mistakes in even more critical times than the times that you did make them. And so, it's just obviously, you're going to have some sleepless nights, and you're going to have a lot of hours, and you're going to put in. But as long as you have sort of integrity, and you treat yourself and your employees and your customers with as much love and respect as you want to be treated yourself, man, I think it's very rewarding. It's extremely rewarding to have people that love working at a place that you run, and it's extremely rewarding when a customer enjoys their experience, whether it be in your facility or outside. And I guess that echoes on the brewing side. For me, it's all about quality. It's all about getting better. It's all about, but that applies to every part of the business, not just the beer side. Beer is sort of a microcosm for life, in my opinion. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not always going to come out the way you want it to. But man, every time we brew beer, I learn something. And so, try to apply that. I would say that'd be my advice. Ask questions. That's always good too.